Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. As always, my name is Alex Martonik, and I'm a lead on Esri's commercial team. I work on our commercial real estate banking and insurance teams, and I have two priorities. The first one is to help our customers close bigger deals faster, and I do this by helping them configure custom applications and powerful narratives that bring a site to life. And then the second part of my job is I help our users avoid costly mistakes by ensuring that they are using the best, most authoritative and reliable data possible and the right methodologies and cartographic principles to ensure they're not making the wrong decision when doing these types of things. If you'd like any more information about some of the stuff we've produced this year in regards to cartography, spatial analysis, or site suitability, we have a link here, go.esri.com/Martonik, where you can find out more. Or if you have any questions directly, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to assist you. Today, commercial real estate has become more volatile than it has ever been before, and part of the reason is that it's increasingly competitive. So according to the CCIM Institute, there is over 150,000 commercial real estate professionals who are working as their primary responsibility in the United States. Also, according to NAR, there is an additional 237 real estate professionals out there who are doing it as their secondary role. Either their primary is in residential and they also work a little bit of commercial on the side, or they're in a completely different field and they do commercial real estate as a second career. So what this means is that stakeholders now have more alternatives and options than ever before, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to stand out. While this is good for the stakeholders because they can shop around, we find that with our customers and our clients as we're working with them, they're looking for a way that they can stand out and differentiate themselves from the competition. And what we've learned over the past year is that the way to do this is to make business personal. And I don't mean be personally invested. We're all personally invested in the outcomes. We want to do the best job possible. We have financial incentives of doing the best job possible. But I mean making it personal to our stakeholders, our clients, and our customers. With this digital transformation, with the Internet of Things, with our connected society, our stakeholders now expect more from us in less time. And the way to really come across this is you have to have three things, and that's access to reliable data. As the old adage goes, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't start with the best data possible, you will not have the best picture, and your recommendations will not be at the level they need to be to retain your customers. But data is only one part of it. Data in and of itself is not useful unless you have an analytical platform that can really make sense of it. And not just a platform that can make sense of it, but one that's easy to use and intuitive. I've never met a commercial real estate professional that's closed a deal by sitting behind a computer all day. No, it's done with the customers face to face. And like I mentioned earlier, my job is to have you spend less time in front of computers and more time working directly with your customers to close these deals. And to have that happen, it needs to be a seamless system that optimizes everything from collection, analysis, and sharing, which is that third component. You can have the right data and you can be correct about a site or a recommendation, but unless you're able to get your stakeholders buy-in, what is the true value? In many cases, if you're right, but the stakeholder doesn't believe you and invest, the value is you have an empty site or a vacant lot. So what you need is a way for even your recommendations, your findings to stand out. And we've all seen these cumbersome binders just full of printouts, and they have maps, and they're large, they're bulky, they're not really easy to share. What we need is a way to share these to any device at any time, anywhere, and also have them just be aesthetically pleasing. So to help us tell this story today, we have like I said, three speakers today. The first one that we have is Martonik M.S. Martonik is the newest addition to our commercial real estate team. Prior to joining Esri, he was finishing up his master's in GIS at the University of Buffalo. His passion is urban design and geoplanning. He'll be talking about some of the intuitive software and data resources available to commercial real estate professionals today. Second, we have the manager of our commercial real estate banking and insurance team, Helen Thompson. Helen has been working in spatial analysis for over 20 years. She's a regular speaker at academic and professional conferences and is even instructed with the CCIM Institute. If you would like to find out anything that she's produced in the last year in terms of articles, you can go to go.esri.com/Thompson to find out more. And lastly, to discuss some of our new innovative presentation tools and some of our adventures into 3D, we have Dennis Kaplan, who is one of our solutions engineers. He's been with Esri now for nearly 15 years, and he's a technical mentor of mine. So with that, we're going to get started, and I'd like to say, Martine, I'm going to hand it over to you. Show us what you have today.
So yes, as Alex mentioned, I am fairly new to this team, and one of the first tasks that I was given as a new employee was to find a suitable site for an appliance store in Yucaipa, California. So to do this, the first thing I did was actually finding where Yucaipa is on the map. So I just typed that into the search bar here. And here we have the municipal boundary of Yucaipa. Now the subsequent steps of this project were kind of a workaround of an existing workflow that I think a lot of GIS professionals and a lot of GIS analysts are familiar with today, and that is sort of scrounging the web for municipal boundaries, census block group data, all of those spatial components to the analysis, and joining them with various attribute data. Maybe for this kind of application, one would be interested in income or median age, that sort of thing. Now my manager, Helen, introduced me to a much easier way to do this, a much faster way to do this, and something that allows me to do these kinds of projects quickly and easily and spend more time with clients. And that was with the business analyst functionality of Smart Map Search. So to get there, I click on this tab, Create Maps from Data, Smart Map Search. Now, the interesting thing about Smart Map Search is that instead of having to go to the web and look for all of these interesting data that might be useful for an analysis, there are 14,000 different data variables that are hosted within Business Analyst that are available, readily available to us. So to get a hold of those things, I'm going to click on Browse All Variables. Now, sort of coming up to this part of the project, we were sort of thinking about a profile of people who we might be interested in looking at, somebody who might be interested in buying appliances. And what we came up with are newly married couples who are moving into older homes. Luckily for us, all of these data that could support that profile are listed here. So let's start with homeowners. We're going to want to find the percentage of homes that are owner-occupied. And when we do that, we just select own. We type that into the search bar, and we're given all these variables. This one, 2010 housing by the U.S. Census, is something that might be interesting. So I see this 2010 owner-occupied housing units. I can select that and click the percentage tab. But I'm also interested in married couples. So I can do the same thing, type married into the search bar, and here I have 5 different variables, but this one, 27 marital status, that sounds interesting to me. So I'm going to open that up and see this 2017 population 15 plus and married. That's 2017 Esri data. I'm going to select the percentage there. The other thing is age that we talked about. We're interested in young married couples. So I'm going to navigate to the age icon here and select the 2017 median age. I'm going to leave that as a number. And we're also interested in the age of the home. So there's a nice data set from the American Community Survey called Housing by Year Structure Built. Now with this one, we can see 10-year increments of when the average house or when the median age of the house was built in a particular unit of geography. I think for this case, we're going to want to look at the median year of the structure built. Now we have all of these great demographic indicators, this interesting information, but one of the things that makes Smart Map Search so powerful is that it actually has information about consumer behavior. So one of the proxies that we thought about for interest in buying an appliance may be the inclination to view programs on the Home and Gardening television network. For anybody familiar with HGTV, a lot of these programs are related to homes and renovations and that sort of thing. So luckily for us, that data is available. We have here the 2017 watched last week HGTV data. We can select that. Now I'm interested in seeing how much the Yucaipa community is watching these programs in reference to the U.S. average. So I'm going to select the Index tab. I'm going to apply those variables. One of the nice things about Smart Map Search is that I can get these data all the way down to the census block group, as you can see here, but I can also go all the way up to the state level if that's something that's interesting for the analysis that I'm doing. In this case, I'm going to keep it at block group. Now, as you can see, all of these block groups are blue. And what that means is we have all of these data variables selected, but we haven't honed in on a specific numerical range for any of these data yet. So up here I can see 2010 home or occupied housing units, and I want to pick the number 63.4%, and that's because that's the U.S. average for home ownership. So I want to make sure that the people I'm looking for are at least representative of the U.S. average of home ownership or higher. The next one is married. I'm looking for married couples, so I'm going to pick kind of a conservative estimate of at least 45% of the population within each census block group as being married. As I said earlier, I'm looking for kind of a younger demographic, so I can actually select a range on both sides here. So I can type 25 as my lower limit and then 40 as my upper limit. And now you can see we're really starting to filter out the census block groups of interest. Kind of an interesting thing is my colleague Alex actually fits this profile quite well. He's a young guy who recently got married and is now in the market to buy a new home. And something that he was mentioning to me is that he's very interested in looking at mid-century homes. I think these homes are very popular because of their character, and they have a certain architectural flair to them that's quite desirable. But another thing that might come with purchasing an older home is the need to maybe do some renovation projects or purchase some new appliances, update your appliances. So that was our thinking behind this particular data variable. I'm going to set my lower limit here as homes built in 1900 and the upper limit at 1980. That's going to be representative of our hypothesis. Now finally we get down to the HGTV variable. And I want to make sure that the people in these census block groups are at least 20% more likely to watch HGTV programs. So I'm going to select 120. Now as you notice that the map hasn't really changed much from this last update of this data variable. And that could be because these four particular demographics are already falling into this category, which if anything kind of helps support our hypothesis. So now we have these areas of geography, but what about our sites? I mean, we're interested in finding a suitable site after all. So let's navigate up here to add data. We're going to import a file, and we're going to browse. Now here I have an Excel file called UKIPA listings that I'm going to open and import. And as you can see, these points show up on the map almost immediately. I want to decluster these points, so I'm going to select deselect the cluster points button here. I'm going to select Next, Apply, and OK. And after this, we're in a pretty good spot to continue with our analysis. Now, this point here is interesting to me because it's close to an intersection of UKIPA Boulevard and California Street, which are two heavily traveled thoroughfares in the area. So it's important to keep in mind that we want this site to be accessible by the common modes of transportation. But we also want to make sure that it could be a quick drive for our demographics of interest. So I'm going to click on this point. I'm going to go to Add Rings, Drive Time, or Walk Time. And in this case, I'm interested in drive time. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to go to More Options. And I'm going to select 5-minute drive time. We could put 5, 10, 15-minute, or 20-minute, or 30-minute, whatever you'd like. But just to keep things simple, I'm going to just have a 5-minute drive time. And I want to make sure that these are aggregated with going toward the facility as opposed to away from the facility. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to apply. And we have this polygon that's been generated that includes all of the areas that are within a 5-minute drive time toward this facility. As you can see, there's some overlap with this polygon and the polygons that we generated from our smart map search, the demographics of interest, and that's a good thing. But we can even find out more about this drive time by selecting this infographics link here to take us to the infographics tool. Now I've created an appliance store profile that includes some of the variables of interest like married population and owner-occupied housing units, and these are both above the thresholds that we set in Smart Map Search. But we also have interesting things related to tapestry segments. These are kind of this all-in-one profile of the kind of people that might live here. And as we can see, we have 1,200 households, a little bit more, that are defined as a home improvement demographic, which seems like a good omen for this particular application. We also discovered soccer moms down the road. So really what we're finding out is that we can discover a lot more about this drive time than we had imagined before. The nice thing about these infographics is that you can include any variable that you'd like for your project, and you can easily customize what is shown on the infographic. And with that, I'm going to leave it to Helen to discuss a little bit more about the customizability of these infographics and how that can help your organization. So Helen, take it away.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Martine, and nice job on that. And once again, Alex, congratulations on recent marriage. So I'm going to swap to a different power tool here, which is Excel. We're all Excel users, but one of the things that people often don't realize is that ArcGIS Maps for Office allows us to really start to turn our spreadsheets into powerful integrations with Esri's mapping platform, ArcGIS Online. And in this example, what I want to do is to mine the very parcels that Martine has showed. And here's my map of a strip mall in Ukaipa. And I've set up a simple map and a table in which I can start typing in parcel information. So into this little box, I'm going to type in a parcel that I know of, 121. And it's going to go away and try to retrieve that information from up in ArcGIS Online and find these different parcels. Now at the moment you can see that I didn't get anything back from that, because what I want to do is I'm going to use a connection to my map, and I'm going to use a reference data set to retrieve information back into this map. So I've set up what we call a locator. So my Ukaipa parcels are my map, and I'm going to link here to the parcel field in my table. So I click add. I can show them in many different ways, and I'm just going to say add data, and it will go look for our parcel database, and here on the map is that parcel that came up inside my table. So if I continue to add parcels to my map, knowing that maybe this came from a lookup on the county's website, or I previously worked with people, the owner of this, and you can see as I add data to this, it's dynamically adding these parcels to the map, and I can see now where all these different parcels are in my area. So it's a great way of integrating a map into the sort of tables that you use all the time. And those tables might be things like sales data, a list of customers, territories in which you're looking at cap rates or other information. So what I want to do is just take some time to show you how this is all set up. And to do that, I'm going to switch to ArcGIS Online. And previously, we've created a map of trade areas. You can see here in these different colors the trade area. This one's called the Northwest, the Southwest, right? These are the names which are defined for that map. To link ArcGIS Maps for Office to a table, what I need to do is create a new locator. So to do this, I'm just going to go in and set up a simple table. So I'm going to say here is my trade area, and I'm going to say this is sales, and I'm going to set this up using Northwest, and I'm going to say for the Northwest area, my sales are 53 widgets. I don't really care what those widgets are, what those numbers are. That's really up to you. I'm going to highlight this data set, and I'm going to add a table, and I'm going to call this trade areas. I strongly recommend using tables. It's a great way to really understand what's happening on the map. And for now, what I'm going to do is just delete this thing that I was previously used, which is my search for parcels. And I'm going to now select to add my data from Excel using a table, and you can see my parcels map, my brand new table called trade areas. Hit OK, and it's going to try and make a best guess for what type of area, what type of locator this is associated with. Because I used UKIPA parcels last time, it thinks that's the best guess. But what I want to do is to add a new data set, a new locator type, and a new way of accessing information. And there's a whole range of standard locators, addresses. They vary by country. We've got world. As you jump through the different definitions of different countries, we support all of the territories and around the world in many, many different geographies. But I'm interested in creating my own locator. So I'm going to add a new locator, and I'm going to use that trade area map that we published earlier. So I'm essentially searching ArcGIS Online here for that web map, which is my reference data set. So I'm going to type trade area locator, and here we are, a map that I created earlier called trade areas that I just showed you, and other people have done similar things. There's 29 pages, but I know that's me, Helen T, and I'm going to select it. And now ArcGIS Maps for Office will link to that service, that published web map, and will tell us the different attributes which are inside and allow me to define my common key, which in this case is trade area. And now I have a brand new locator. If I type here, select the trade area, click OK, we're going to add our data, and it will now go in, and it's generated a map, and it's automatically found me the Northwest. As I start typing other locations, like the Southwest, it will add it, as you can see, automatically to the map, and I can say that we've sold 65 widgets in that location, or Northeast, for example, and we've added 43 widgets in that location. So it dynamically allows me to create one of these services to make sure that when I'm using data sets and data tables again and again and again, I can consistently link the attributes in that table to maps which are in my service, and make sure that everything's correct. If I make a mistake, so if I say over here, I'm going to say that I'm interested in a location and I'm going to mistype it, right? It will come back and say, well, look, here's an error associated with that, and it's exactly the definition in my map. I'll click Find Again, and you know, it doesn't really make much sense because we've already got that one, right? So it doesn't add an extra feature, duplicate feature to the map. But if I add something else here, you know, say the Southeast, correct that, I can correct that field, and it's added another feature to the map. So this is essentially bulletproof. You're using the labels in the map, and that's what's bringing about the intelligence. So if I go back here, we're finding the trade regions is our attribute in the map, and the names for each one of these regions, like Southeast, Midwest, whatever it is, are the names that I'm typing into that box, into that search space in my table. And I've done the same thing with a group of territories for Denver, for the Denver region. And I built a trade area map, and I've linked that trade area map to some other data which you typically find in real estate. In this case, it's about the office markets. So I've got the name of the market, I've got the total number of buildings, other information about the building type. And I used exactly the same model to create a locator to link this table to my map boundaries. And now up here in my map, I now have all of the different areas linked up with the different attributes. And with that data that's in ArcGIS Online, I can bring that information with me into Business Analyst. So I'm going to go back to where we started with Martine, which is in Business Analyst. So here we are with these office markets and all of the attributes that we've looked at, the class, whether it's existing, under construction, whatever it might be, are now attributes in Business Analyst. And of course, we can use that for Smart Map Search. So using a custom data set. So in exactly the same way, I can go in, do Smart Map Search, and I can start to manipulate this data. I'm going to browse all, and you can use the web map data to go and do this. And you can see now, for that custom data set, here are all of my attributes that were originally in that Excel table, linked to a map outline, and then brought back in to Business Analyst. And one of our upcoming webinars, we're going to show you how to do this, but that really isn't the purpose of today. So what I want to show you is now, once that data is published, as a user of that data, I can build incredibly powerful infographics. So this is an infographic for the office market, and it's using some of these thousands of attributes, these 17,000 attributes in Business Analyst, to come back with my employees by industry. And this is a standard chart in Business Analyst that I've customized for the colors of the business that I've been working with. And I've summarized it to be 962,000 employees. I've used one of the CCM demand models to create a forecast for what the office demand is using custom attributes which are stored within Business Analyst, and made some other maps associated with it. So really, this whole infographic is just 5 elements: 2 charts down the bottom, a donut chart, and a couple of tables. And there's some nice things that we can do behind this. So let me show you how I created this. Behind this template between these different areas is a background, and everybody that attends this can get access to the backgrounds that we use. So I'm going to remove this background, click apply, and you'll see now that whole area where I was highlighting the daytime population dynamics and the market summary used an image as the background reference for it. I can move these different components around, swap them into different areas. These elements themselves are infographic panels, as we call them. So here I'm summarizing from the data set, making a market summary. I've got 3 graphic widgets, 3 icons, which I've imported into this. And I've got some market summary data, which is coming from my data set itself. And I can configure how these different data sets are brought in. If I click the back button, you can see it's actually using data from my map service that I just showed, the total number of buildings, the total number of offices, and the average building size. So this is a great way of using and creating custom graphics and bringing in information which is stored from many different sources. So I'm going to quit out of this a moment and show you some of the many, many different examples that I've built associated with that. So I'm just going to go back to my map, click on infographics, and because I didn't save that infographic, none of the changes that I made are recorded. But we've built many, many different ways of looking at this information, and everybody, as I said, that attends will get the backgrounds for this. So here's a key fact associated with the Denver market. I've grouped population information into this thing I call the periodic table. I can find out other information about housing units and education. I can go and, if I'm working with Dunkin' Donuts, a new store, and they've got particular attributes that they want to use, I can generate an infographic that uses the Dunkin' Donuts brand. These aren't the characteristics that they necessarily use to select a store, but I've aggregated information in different ways to do that, and are highlighting some key attributes. Or other examples like placing a car wash, where somebody wants some very, very specific information associated with the car wash, should I go to that area. And again, in what we're doing now is just like Martine did for the home improvement markets, is pulling information specifically about vehicle maintenance, or about the type of vehicle, or about vehicle ownership. So these infographics can be built for every different type of task and work that you're doing, for every different property type or type of analysis. Now, I don't want to, as I said, to go into how we're going to do this. If you want to come to our next webinar on September the 28th, we're going to spend the whole time going through these sort of custom infographics and how to build them, and the backgrounds that we'll share with you, you can use as part of that. So I'm going to hand it back to Alex now.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Helen. And very informative, and these infographics are just stunning. But one of the things we're working on right now is 3D visualization through web applications. So our final speaker today is Dennis Kaplan, our solution engineer, who's going to be showing us some of the new stuff. So Dennis, whenever you're ready.
So yeah, I just want to reiterate what you said, Helen. That was a great demonstration. Really enjoyed it. But what I'm going to show is I'm going to switch gears a little bit here and introduce the community to a viewer that we have that a lot of people might not be utilizing. So basically, it's our web scene viewer. A lot of the users out here are familiar with our ArcGIS Align environment here. You're very familiar with our 2D map environment. But I think some users haven't really been able to experience our scene viewer, which is basically Esri's globe. And it's a very powerful tool to be able to show items, basically, obviously, in 3D, and to be able to get, I'm just randomly going into Kansas here, oblique imagery, which is really popular in the commercial real estate market. So what I wanted to do in this demonstration, though, is not, obviously introduce you to the web scene viewer, but introduce you to ways to bring data into the web scene viewer and bring that data in as a logo, the logo map. How do you bring points into this environment and put a logo on the location and make a compelling visualization out of it? So to do that, I'm going to start here in our ArcGIS Align environment. And I'm also going to start with the data. Now this data, it's an Excel file here, but obviously this data could be sitting on, an enterprise geodatabase or a database on SQL Server or anywhere else in your organization. I just happen to have, I think it's over about 300 locations in this market here, in this San Antonio market. I want to bring this data into ArcGIS Align and make it ready to be able to view in our web scene. Now, to bring data into the web scene viewer, the data has to be formatted a little differently than the data inside of our 2D environment. You have to basically create the data or make the data into what's called a hosted feature layer. And to do that, there's a few different ways to do it, but the easiest way to do that, I think, is to go to your content window here, go to Add Item, and from my computer, and basically choose the file, click on that file there. And then what will happen is our software, the application here, will recognize if it has a latitude, longitude, or if it has an address fields, or if you just want to bring it as a table. It's just trying to figure out how do you want to bring the data into the ArcGIS Online. So I'm going to basically bring this data in and let it process. And really, this will publish this file as a hosted layer. That's the biggest thing here, where it's going to make it an actual feature in ArcGIS Online. And when it finishes it coming in here, what we're going to do is we're going to set up some of the visualization in this environment here before we even bring it into the map. So a lot of our users are familiar with going into the map and then setting up the visualization from there and the pop-ups. But what we're going to do is set up the visualization right here in ArcGIS Online. So here, the data is ready. It's just the standard points right now. Here's the table, and then the visualization. Excuse me. So in the visualization area here, we'll see the data points as we, when we brought them in. But what we're going to do is click on symbology, and we just have the names. It's a pretty simple data set. We only have 5 locations. But what I want to do is I want to add the logos to these 5 locations. So what I do is click that option there, and I'm going to choose subway as the first one. So here's the change symbol option. Now this is where it gets pretty fun. Esri, we have a whole slew of marker symbols here that are available to you, from outdoor recreation logos to basic symbolization, arrows, shapes. But we want to bring in a logo. So to do that, we use an image from a URL. Now that image could be your logo library that you have. Maybe you have PNGs for Whole Foods, Walmart, Target, hotels, restaurants. You have those in your library or directory. You can bring those in from a web server. If you have those on a web server, such as Google Photos, Flickr, if you have them on Box. But what I want to show you is a way you can store logos in the ArcGIS Online environment as well. So to do that, we basically need to paste a URL in here. So I'll show you how I basically took logos that I had and loaded them up to ArcGIS Online and then used the URL for the logo. So it's the same process. You add data from computer, you choose a file, you go to your logo directory, you add those in, and just an FYI, PNG transparent seems to work really well for logos. But you take HEB or Starbucks, you add them in to the environment, you just click add. And then what you're going to do is copy this URL here to your clipboard, and then go back to your area here. I should have done Subway. Let me do Walmart. Let me go shape, use image. Just Control V there, paste that in, and now you'll have the Walmart logo inside of your map. And we're going to do, you've got to make it big and click OK. So now you have the Walmart logos inside of your map. Basically you just do the same process for HEB, Starbucks, Subway, Target, and then when you have this in here, you can, click OK. You got your symbolization done, but you also want to set what happens when someone clicks on the point, the pop-ups. Now we can do this in the web map, but we can also do this here. So when anytime anybody adds this layer into any map, our 2D map or our scene, all this will be set up for them automatically. So I want to set the pop-ups. So configure pop-ups. I don't want it to say sample data. I want it to be the name. I don't need my customers to see all of this data. I just want them to see the address. And where's the phone number? I think I have the phone number in here somewhere, or the phone number. And you can change it to be, a nicer text here, phone number. And then maybe if you have some other data, you can add that as well too. Click OK. And now when I click on the points, Walmart address, phone number, or whatever data that you might have for your locations. The idea here is when I save this layer, now it's saving it throughout the enterprise. So anybody, like I said before, adds this data will be the same in every map. And this enables me to bring it into our web scene viewer. So I'm going to go over to our web scene viewer here, and I've just basically have it, aerials turned on. I'm going to go to the content window here, and you can see that I've already, have the locations already brought in from previous. But basically, you'd go to add layers, and then you'd look for sample data, and you'd add. See, I don't have all the items symbolized all fancy like the other one, but you basically just add it to your map. Now, when you bring the data into your map, just before users conference, our product team added some nice configurations in here that made it really fun and useful, I think, in the commercial real estate market. Is in the options here, I have it on name, in the options here, you can see the logos, but you can't change them in here. So that's why we did it in that other step, in the previous step. But what you can do here is, let me turn them on, is you can do this thing called call out. Now, what does that mean? Let me zoom in and put it on its edge here. Get that little oblique going here. Turn that on its edge, and now you can see this little black call out line, the HB and the logo or the label. And as I move around, you see it's kind of dynamically moving the labels. You can change, you can add a call out or not add a call out. You can make it a small call out, a larger call out. You can make it depending on your base map, you can have a white line or a black line. Turn the labels on or off, which I think is really great. It doesn't have to be the name. Maybe it's some volumetric data or something in a store number. Where that label goes, on the side, on the top, large, dark, or light text, depending on your base map. And the other one I think is, I don't know the actual algorithm behind the improved perspective or the declutter, but I think it's very useful to be able to use these to basically not label too much to make the map look appropriate what you're viewing. So this process that I brought you through to take it, points, bring them into Arches Online, add the logos to the information, and then bring them into our 3D environment is really powerful. And then you can take this data, save this map or this scene, and then bring this into basically a story map and have information off to the side. So this piece here in our panel story map, accepts web scenes, videos, or web maps, accepts all kinds of different information. And now you can start telling a story with this data as the amenities around a location. So this is something I wanted to share with you guys today. Lots of steps that, Helen, myself, Martine, we all showed, so the video will be nice to be able to walk through, the future data, go, how do we do that? But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll send it back to you.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Dennis. And what I enjoyed about this is, we had 3 different types of demonstrations here. Martine, for example, highlighted a quick and easy to use tool that can be used for daily uses, whereas this right here with the logo map, a little bit more front-end effort to go in, but this is a survivable resource that you can keep in your portfolio. Once you have built this scene, you can copy it, place it in every application that you'd like, and update periodically, whether on a monthly or weekly basis. And once you have the logo set, you don't need to constantly keep uploading them. You just go back into your scene at a new point, say if a new Jack in the Box or McDonald's, the symbology is already there. So this is one of those survivable types of resources that you can use for your entire market and really interact. So with that, we're going to be heading into our QA. So the first question, Martine, coming from the University of Buffalo and coming from your master's from an academic setting right into the heart of a commercial real estate application, what did you find was different? What changed in your approach using a software, or sorry, a internet-based software solution versus desktop?
Well, yeah, so I think that's a good way to put it, because when I first started doing these this project, I was kind of going the sort of the way that I knew with the desktop based solution, which definitely does accomplish the task. It just might not do so in as efficiently as some other options that Esri has. So I think after the sort of first week or so, switching to business analysts to do these workflows was quite easy. It didn't take me too long to learn to use Smart Map Search and a couple other functionalities within Business Analyst. And I was able to kind of cut down my work time significantly and still produce some very striking visuals. So I would say the transition was quite easy. and definitely something that I'm welcoming to learn more about as I keep doing these kinds of projects.
One observation, and something you did incredibly well here, was really, it seems at first like you're doing a residential real estate type of analysis, but you're solving this commercial question. And what I enjoyed about your section was how you focus on the behavior of the consumers and the people who would actually use that site. This new approach of not just looking at basic demographics, but are the people here inclined? Are they likely to use these types of goods and services? So you did a tremendous job there, and I like that I was able to serve as your persona without realizing it. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Alex.
Of course. Helen, we have a question here for you. The mapping that you did during the demonstration, did that occur in ArcGIS, or can you describe how that occurred in Excel and ArcGIS for Office?
Thanks, Alex. Yes, everything that I showed was occurring within Microsoft Office itself. We've got a plugin for Office called ArcGIS Maps for Office, and it installs a new ribbon and connects directly to ArcGIS Online, where you enter your credentials. So everything that I was doing was inside Office, a very familiar environment to everybody. And the little map window comes along with it when you first connect to ArcGIS Online. It understands tables, and as you saw, you can create your own custom locators. But if you don't have your own custom locators, you could just type an address into the window and it will go away and create a point, a state name, it will generate the boundary of the state, or any geography anywhere in the world.
Wonderful. And you also did some data enrichment there. So in terms of current data, we have of course, the 2010 U.S. Census data. We'll soon have 2020. But can you discuss Esri's data for projections of growth expansions in certain markets?
Yeah, every year we release a new set of data, and we're using the U.S. Census baseline, if we're just talking about the U.S., to create that, and then spend much of the year then looking against ACS data or other forecasts to create a new projection which becomes the next year. So we're busy working on 2018 data, which will release next year. But also what we do is then we use the history of the change, whether an area has grown in population or it's changed, maybe in employment demographics with data coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, to then do a forward forecast, which is 5 years out. So in today's release of the data, you have both 2017 data and a forecast data set for 2022. So 5 years forecast.
Wonderful, and that's great for looking at those hyperlocal markets, but those trends of growth and how they compare to the U.S. average. What's the current growth rate and where it's projected? Wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. And then in many other countries around the world, we have some data which we get from our partner Michael Bauer, and also for selected territories, there's other census data which is published, and that's continually being expanded upon.
And then also, Helen, the infographics seem to be a common theme here with the questions. Can you discuss embedding these dynamic infographics into story maps to have as living content?
Yeah, so one of the things that I'll show on the next webinar is how when you build one of these infographics, the infographic itself is actually an HTML5 self-contained file. So you can publish these to PDF or save them as an image, but one of the great things you can do is actually save the HTML, and it's a full encapsulated page. What that means is you can store that on a file server anywhere or up in the web, or as Dennis showed, many times you can store this in other organizational accounts, and then that dynamic HTML5 infographic is disconnected from Business Analyst, And you can put it into a story map, you can embed it on your website, you can put it on your, your tablet, your phone, whatever it might be. So it's a really, really great way of taking everything that you saw, the beautiful graphics, the background, the coloring associated with it, and that entire thing is transportable. So yeah, come to the 28th, the September webinar where we'll do this.
Thank you. And in terms of, and this can be either Dennis or Helen, whichever you may know, do you know if there's any plans yet for connecting this with Adobe Illustration in the workflow? There's going to be any type of plugin or integration there?
So we already have, sorry Dennis, I was
No, you're fine.
jumping across you, but we already have a connection for the Adobe Creative Suite. So there's ArcGIS for Creative Suite. A lot of marketers are using this, and this allows you to customize the map style and the data. So anything that's in ArcGIS Online can be used in exactly the same way. So definitely worthwhile investigating that, and if there's interest, we'll hold a webinar on that.
Oh yes, and if that's actually a great segue into, if at any point you have anything that you'd like to see a more in-depth dive into, whether it's site suitability, market analysis, or what have you, feel free to find us on LinkedIn or, again, reply to that GoToWebinar email. And we do base these webinars based on the feedback we receive. So if there's anything you'd like to see, just please let us know.
And we'd also encourage you, to join the Esri Real Estate SIG on a special interest group on LinkedIn. We monitor that continually, and that's a great place to discuss these ideas as well.
Wonderful. Again, this webinar was recorded, and I don't see any more questions coming in. So with that, everyone, thank you for joining us today. And we will send again the link out in the next 10 business days, and we look forward to seeing you on September 28th. Thank you for joining us.